isn't giving up chocolate for a few weeks. Denial is not saying, geez, I'm not going to watch the Kardashians this week. Denial is not saying I'm giving up basketball or soccer or any of the things that we usually talk about. It's not calling us to become stricter in our lives. It's not calling us to sacrifice something other than this one key thing. When you read the Bible and you want to know what a word means, the easiest thing to do is to say, is there anything else in this book, any place else in this book, where the same word's used? And so can anybody think of anywhere in Matthew or maybe in the Gospel where somebody denies something? And this is the chance for audience participation. Can anybody, and it has to do with the crucifixion story. Who denies anybody in the Gospels? He's our good buddy Peter, right? He's a hero sometimes, he's a bozo sometimes. Kind of like how we live our lives, right? But Peter denies, right? And what does Peter do? Peter denies what?
Knowing him.
He denies knowing Jesus. Why?
Fear.
Fear of what? What's going to happen to Peter? Yeah, exactly. That's the key thing. Did you hear? We all said it. We already know this. To deny yourself is to refuse to cut around the edges so you save yourself. And I want us to be honest. I mean, I've lived on earth long enough. As you get older as an adult, you make certain compromises. To deny yourself is to say, you know what, I'm not compromising anymore, and I'm not going to act just to save my own skin. I mean, that's not horrible, but that's what the text means. It'd be nice if I just give up chocolate for a couple of weeks or not watch TV. It says, I'm going to order my life and live my life not to save my own skin. So it's not recklessness, though, right? It's not doing stupid stuff. It's not trying to have some kind of suicide pact. Well, I'm going to go try to get myself executed on purpose. We're not talking about that. But it's making those little, tiny compromises that allow you to save yourself over against glorifying who Jesus is. We all know where that might work in our own lives. And then we take up our cross. Just to go back to the same thing. Anybody know anybody else that takes up a cross in the Gospels? Not a trick question. Who? Yeah, Jesus, right? That's always the right answer in church, right? But think about it. When you ask yourself what a word means, what's it mean to take up a cross? A lot of times when we take up a cross, like I know our little tattoo Bible study got crosses on their arms. Is that what it means? Or does it mean to wear a cross, earrings, or a necklace? I mean, that's a lot of times what we do. We wear the cross. And that's fine. We're not discussing that stuff at all. But it's actually kind of scary. The equivalent of taking up the cross today would be as if somebody was going to get hung, you would hand them their noose, and they would walk it to the gallows. Or if you're going to have be electric, you have to carry your own electric chair into the execution room. So to take up your cross, that's what the Romans made people do. Pick up your cross, and guess what? If you take up your cross, that's the last walk you're ever going to take. Remember the movie a few years ago had Sean Penn in it, Dead Man Walking? That's what it means. And what I want you to think there, this isn't just a morbid picture, but this is actually a freeing image from fear. Because if you're carrying your cross, what does that mean functionally? You're already dead. How would you live your life if you were already dead? You feel that? That's what Jesus is calling you to. So you're never freer than in that moment. And Jesus is basically saying this. Jesus goes to the cross for us, takes care of death, secures the future, so that for the rest of my life, I don't have to be afraid of anything, and I can live my life as though I already am dead. And what could God do with people that live like that? Anything. You're not living in a jar, and that jar is shattered, and you're going into the ocean, going wherever God is. You're not even worried about a shark anymore. Because you're living your life as if you're already dead. If you like the movies Braveheart, remember that one with Mel Gibson, kind of a heroic movie. Had a great tagline on its posters. It was Every man dies, not every man really lives. Tim McGraw had that song a few years ago, Live Like You Were Dying. Remember that was a hit, kind of a good song. A guy is sick, finds out he's sick, so what does he finally do? He does all the things he wished he would have done the rest of his life. I mean, we have that bucket list movie that was out a couple of years. Everybody has their bucket list. Why do we wait until we're sick to live like we really want to live? This is a text that's saying, follow Jesus and live the life that God dreamed for you now. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. And God can use us to change the world. That's how the gospel moved out. Just think about it. These guys, they see Jesus crucified. They're horrified. They're hiding in a house, hoping they don't get arrested. How do those people just take the gospel to the whole Roman Empire? It's because something happened to them. And I want to talk about that for a minute. This isn't just like a rah-rah thing. It's learning how to bank on that secure future. Because let's go back to Jesus' first call when he said what he must do. Jesus, from that time on, told the people that he had to go to Jerusalem, that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer, die, and then what? Be raised on the third day. So the good news is already there. The future is already secure. His disciples just couldn't hear that. And if we have, well, actually these verses that are still up there, look at verse 27 and 28. This ends with a good news. There's a paradox here. It says if you want to save your life, you'll lose it. Again, if you try to save your life rather than deny your life, you ultimately slowly lose it. But we can live fully for God because the future is secure. Again, verse 27, for the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, then he will repay everyone for what he's done. And verse 28, truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So how do we get there? How do we move from a person who might to a person who must? How do we move from living a life rooted in fear and excuses to living the abundant life that God's called us to? It's an experience. And Paul's going to call it in Philippians, knowing Jesus. Let me tell you a story. Like I said, I'm from Ohio, and kept taking the kids to the beach over the years. I was doing my PhD. I was living in Richmond, Virginia, so I go down to Virginia Beach. Just to take on vacation. I've been down to the Outer Banks. I've been to all these beaches. Been to Myrtle Beach. Been to Hilton Head. Been to all the beaches around here. And for most of my life, I sat there looking out at these kind of crazy people that were out in the water on surfboards, floating around out there, looking like they're having a good time. You'd see guys in wetsuits when it's really cold. Hey, what are they doing out there? And when I was getting close to 40, so this was a few years ago, now I'll be 46 in a couple weeks here, but when I was still 39, I thought, you know what, I've been sitting on the beach too long. I'm never going to do that if I don't try it now. And so I decided, let's get a couple boards, and my girls and I will learn how to surf. And so we started surfing. Of course, and this was kind of fun. My daughter, who said I might get eaten by a shark, this is a few years later, she's first one in. She's instantly riding waves. She's a little kid. It's easy to teach. She's 10 or 11 now, and we've got the surfboards, and so she's up there and up on the board riding around. Now me, I know you can tell I'm just an incredible athlete. But, it took me, I'm going to say, I don't know, 500 times before I managed to get the board stable and ride that wave. But I want to tell you something. It was actually life-changing, and I'll never forget it. I've been waiting to do this my whole life. I've done some bodyboarding. So I'm finally out there, and finally, the wave's coming, I'm paddling. I jump up on the board. I don't wipe out right away. And it's like the whole world stopped. I heard this sound that I can only call the surfing sound in my ear. It was like this whistle. And I felt like I was literally flying. And it was a life-changing experience. And again, eventually the wave ends, and I thought to myself, I got to do that again. Now, being 40, being a seminary professor, being a pastor, my friends were concerned. They're like, Brian, you're going to hurt yourself. And I'm thinking, I just want to ride away. And they go, are you going to be one of those guys that when storms are coming, instead of going inland, you're going to the beach? Right? But that's what happens, right? Because surfers, they want to surf. So when bad weather comes, everybody else is going, hey, I need to hunker down. They're going, awesome. The waves are coming, right? And I have to say I've done that a couple times. I'm not crazy, of course, but I do. But I always think, wow, there's a hurricane coming. Cool, there's going to be good waves. Then my other friends were going, Brian, I've been up in airplanes, and I've looked down, and guess what we're back to again? Sharks. Brian, we don't want you to get eaten by a shark. And I'm thinking, this isn't my daughter, these are my friends. So of course I reassured them, like, you guys, you don't have to worry about it. I never worry about sharks because I'm massively nearsighted, don't even wear my glasses, and I won't see them anyway. And, but that's the point. I made them laugh for a second. I was like, here's the whole point. It's like, you know what? Here's what I want you to know about surfing. When you're surfing, the experience of riding a wave is so exhilarating and so awesome, you don't even think about a shark. The reward is worth the very slight risk if something's going to actually happen to you. And what I want to suggest to you is this. In the same way that catching a wave can be life-changing, it can move you from, it moved my daughter from wanting to live in a jar to wanting to be on the ocean, is that knowing Jesus is the key game-changing, life-changing thing that can move you from a life of fear, a life of limitations, and a life of what might have been, to living the life that God dreamed about when He first put you in your mother's womb. And it's never too late to live into that life and to make the decision, I'm going to live that way right now. I'm not going to wait another moment to become the person that God wants me to be. You're never too old, never too young, never too old. It's now, the time's now. And so what are we afraid of? Let's live in the waves. We're free to live the life of God's dreams because this is what God needs. God is looking for a few good men and women to be His disciples that He can use to change the world. That's what the message of Easter is. And here's some of the shifts that are going to take place. When you experience Jesus and you hear Him calling you to follow Him into the world on mission, you get to become one of His ambassadors of His abundance and kindness and love. You get to help start to make shifts. And the shifts that you're going to see, the kind of world that you're going to begin to help God create is a world that's not about fear anymore. It becomes about freedom. It's a world not about judgment, but about God's justification and justice. It's not about accusation anymore, but it's about God's abundance. It's not about feeling forsaken, it's about being forgiven.